Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Here to join me is Dr. Ava Frick, we're going to learn about everything that she has learned in the last 45 years of being a vet. Some of the best conversations I have are with veterinarians that have been doing this over 30 years, as you guys know. So let's pick Dr. Ava Frick's brain, and we're going to do a review of my dog, Guss's sample. We did a kit, a thing called the Check Pup kit. We're going to go through those. We're going to show them to you on the screen for the first time. I haven't even looked at them. So this would be the first time I look at them with Dr. Frick online. So Dr. Frick, welcome. Dr. Ava, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. And I've been really intrigued with your product line that you and Ian have developed. It's like so cool. And your website is awesome. The motion on there and the photography and everything, it's really, really good. It pulls you right in. You're going like, I want to be a part of that. So this is good. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about first and foremost, we'll get into the Check Pup kit, which you helped develop. Mm-hmm. So it's you to go to checkpup.com. We'll put that up on the screen in a bit, but let's back up a little bit. So how did you come to start, co-found that? Is that the right term? You co-founded Check Pup?
Yeah. So actually, I had been doing the hair tissue mineral analysis already, for like 15 years or so. Yeah. When two entrepreneurs reached out to me, they were looking to develop a hair testing kit that would be available to people, the pet owners, so that they could figure out what's really going on in their animals. And this is a big part of like functional medicine, is that you look at the environment, you look at the whole body, you look at what's going on behind the scenes. So we're not just putting out fires all the time, we're actually going after the arsonist. And so these entrepreneurs reached out to me because I had published research in this area, and every place they looked, my name kept coming up. So I started off just as a consultant, and then right away I was a part of the team of building this checkpup.com website and the readouts for it. So one of the guys is really good with the marketing, another one's the business manager, and then I'm the brain of this whole interpretation of the hair analysis reporting and then what's done. So basically the answers you get from Check Pup are what I would present to a client that had a hair sample done on their very own dog or cat or horse. The program so far is just for dogs, but I do cats and horses as well, and teach doctors on how to interpret this. And I have written a book on interpretation. So basically, it's like my whole brain in this computer tech program that spits out the data, and it's then customized to that individual dog.
Great. Okay. So, we gave a sample this is a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. We gave some of Gus's hair in. I followed the instructions, was not difficult. We're not selling this, we're not getting any incentive or anything. We're not selling this kit, but we participated because I wanted to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
And so should we put you want me to put a screenshot up and then we'll talk about?
Yeah, we can talk about how it's broken down and how we go about determining.
Okay.
Now I'm going to put my spectacles on for this.
Hey there, this is Rob Ryan. I just want to say how much we enjoy making this content for you here. And if you are enjoying it, would you like our video down below? And would you subscribe to our YouTube channel? It sure does help us get discovered by more people like you who need information like this. And also down below in our description, the top link is to our trial pack. We hope you'll order one for your dog so your dog can have fermented superfoods that give them nutrition like they can't find anywhere else. Hard to get nutrients that are easily absorbed. Thank you very much. Now back to the show.
Yeah, so there's several parts. The first part, you had a little questionnaire survey that you needed to fill out about how he acts, different behavior things, his digestion, whether or not there's any allergy things going on, which all allergies go back to the liver. So there are parts about this test then that reflect the systems check is the reflection of those questions that you answered and what you said. So you may have an individual. So the one that's in red would be the one, oh, see, there's no reds. There's one caution, and then there's 9 goods. So on that questionnaire survey, basically, Gus doesn't visually to you have a whole lot of problems going on because there's only one that came up as a caution. And then so if you clicked on this, then it would open up that it says view report. You'd be able to look at what is the part of that you responded to, and how does that question connect to some nutritional component. Because our goal is to find, in that part, is to find which organ system that you observe discrepancies about that, say, example, if there's a lot of allergies and itching and problems in that area, also digestive, it could be a liver issue. So if you had a high percentage in the liver category, then we know we need to support that liver as a priority system as we're working through building this nutrient balancing program. So
about the caution, the reason we're not sharing my full screen is because my information's on that screen, everybody. So we just created this slide, but I just clicked on, I'm looking at another, at the actual screen. And in that caution, the caution is for the endocrine system, adrenal, pituitary, thyroid. And then if you click on that, it says it is possible that Gus's endocrine system is unbalanced. Gus is showing clear signs of imbalance and stress. So that's based on the questionnaire.
Yes, that's based on the questionnaire. And interestingly enough, I'm glad you did that, because that actually will come up on the hair report as well. That is substantiated. So what you're seeing, whatever you marked as it's not a high percentage because it's only got a 1 marker there. But so the endocrine system, you're already seeing some indicators in his life and things that's going on that say, he's not quite perfect here. So that's good, because it's going to come up on the hair analysis, the actual graph. Right. So that's that part of it. Then the wellness check has to do with the graph. So you've got an attention in the red down here, and that's gonna be the endocrine in the test that matches with the survey that you did. That's the caution. So on the wellness check, then that's the summary of what is determined by the graph. Now, we don't give folks, the veterinarians can get the graph, but we don't provide you the ability to see the graph because people would misinterpret what it's saying. It's very detailed and very intricate. And sometimes there might be a mineral that's low because that's the body's priority to keep something else from going higher, which would be much worse. And so people tend to look at, this is low, so I need to give more of it. And that would be the very wrong thing to do in many situations. So people don't get to see the graph, but what they're getting is the data that I would present based on that graph.
Okay.
So that's the wellness check, is from the graph. Now,
and just for the viewers, just so I can interject, I clicked on the wellness check, and in the reasonable concern red, it's and it's important to pay attention to words. It's a reasonable concern. It's not like hair on fire, like, go crazy. I'm not freaked out about this, but it's a good thing it's good information. It's good data. It says thyroid performance. Mm-hmm. And then if you click on that, he's got a thyroid performance score of 13.25. This score is very high and indicates reasonable concern, a mineral imbalance. And the optimal score is 3.8. He's got 13.25. So good data. Am I freaked out? No. So, and the reason I want to just add this color to it, because if people get tests, I'm sure you see this, Dr. Frick, like any data you give them could freak them out one way or another.
So, for sure. The least little thing. Yeah.
The least little thing. And I get questions at Gussie's Gut. We get questions of like, okay, it says a teaspoon, but my dog's 5 pounds. And should I do for per 20 pounds, a teaspoon. Should I do, a quarter of a teaspoon? And we're like, yeah, it's just very safe. It's very easy, but they're very overly concerned. We see a ton of stress. I'm kind of blown away by how much sensitivity and stress people have that, they're just so afraid of. I think these industries, these especially pet food, has freaked people out that they're going to kill their pets. And so everybody just thinks like the slightest little mistake, they're going to like immediately just they're going to be at the hands of their pet's death, because they didn't pay attention to something and they see a 13.25 number. It's like, oh my gosh, 3.8 is the optimal score, but my dog's a 13.25. This is just, I'm going to tell you guys how I'm going to interpret this test at the end of this. But if that is you, please, I'm trying to share this with you because I want to shrink everybody's amygdalas and I want them to be calmer. Their fear is a lot of times just pay attention to good data. And that's so important, is just get really good vets on your side. What I think that's going to be that's what this whole talk is going to be about today with Dr. Frick, is get good people on your team and get good data and then make good decisions. So, okay, I'm sorry. So tell me what, anything you wanted to add about that. Thyroid.
Well, like you said, reasonable means that there's indicators there that we should look at it, but it's not saying high certainty, high probability, then high certainty, extreme concern. It's not saying all of those, but it is skewed. And so that's going to be one of the things that we look at, because if we correct that, then, it'll go away and everything else will be better.
Yeah.
And the thing people have to realize is when we're looking at the hair sample, it's very different than blood. Blood is what keeps that individual alive at that second and every second of their existence. And when there's actual organ tissue breakdown and destruction, you'll see elevations and changes in certain enzymes or factors that are in the blood that you look for in the blood test. But the body does not live off of what's in the blood. It lives off of what's called the interstitial fluid. And the interstitial fluid is like your pantry and your refrigerator. It's what's holding everything that the body will use for every metabolic process, everything that's happening to that your energy factors, the nutrients that they're getting to the tissue and the cells via that interstitial fluid. Antibodies in the interstitial fluid. That's how it's delivered for you to eat it and consume it. Precursors of anything is in that interstitial fluid, and that's also a part of the lymphatics. So not only is it about taking in the good, but it's also moving the bad away from cells too. So the interstitial fluid is a very different entity when we look at adjusting and correcting alterations than it would be when you look at blood. And we'll talk about the thyroid because he has that going on. And after I mention about his graph, then we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between the thyroid. Well, I guess we can talk about it now. So thyroid in the blood is looking at how many levels, what's the level of the T3, the T4, the hormone levels, the TSH, which is the pituitary, telling the thyroid, stimulating the thyroid to work. So it's looking at how much is there in the blood. But the interstitial fluid is about how much can get to the cells. Can what's being produced actually nourish that body? And B, the thyroid's a generator. So can it generate and move things? And so we're looking at it from, can that hormone get to the cells? Is the hormone getting to the cells? And are the cells using it? Not just, is it in the blood? And that's a very different factor. I mean, like one instance would be is that selenium is needed to move the thyroid hormone out of the blood into the cells. So if the selenium is low, your dog could be hypothyroid on a blood test, and maybe it's and you could say, okay, we need to replace that hormone, and you take the pills. You could get a test back that says his hormone levels are normal, but yet he looks very hypothyroid to the doctor, but that could be because the thyroid hormone isn't getting to the cells because the selenium's low.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different ways to look at it. And again, in this situation, we're looking at, is the thyroid as a generator moving the body at its pace that it should, or is it slowing things down? And sometimes when the adrenal glands have gone on for too long and the body is actually getting into an exhausted state, the adrenals, which actually is a priority over the thyroid, sometimes the thyroid has to go, dude, you've been working too hard, too long, I'm shutting you down. And the thyroid will purposefully work slow. So we use the word slow with the hair mineral analysis testing as opposed to low, because we're not saying that the hormones are low, but we're saying that this thyroid purposefully, to save the body, to preserve the adrenals, that helps support the digestive processes and not die out at an early age. The thyroid has made that determination that as the generator, it has to slow things down. And so the last thing you want to do when the body is slowing the thyroid down to save everything else is to put it on thyroid replacement and now speed that body back up. You take, like a dog that's 10 to 12 years old, sure, the thyroid may be slow, and maybe they need a little bit of replacement, but you need to know from this hair analysis, is it working fast and doesn't have hormone and it's trying to go more and more and more? Or is it slow because the adrenals have crashed and this is actually preservation? And at that point, to speed the thyroid up speeds up the adrenals and you're just cutting years off that dog's life. That's the difference. And that's why doing this test and finding out the real why, because we look at then what are the minerals and the mineral ratios. Yeah. So his calcium is actually high. And that will happen when the thyroid is trying to, and you won't see that here, that's on the graph, which is the part we're not showing to the clients, but the veterinarians can get it. So the calcium is higher than what it should be, and it's higher than the potassium. And that ratio is what we look at that determines the speed of the thyroid. And in his situation, his thyroid has determined, I need to slow things down.
Okay.
Because of that, we know that. So that elevated calcium, the potassium ratio is what made this red on this attention as a 1 because of that. And the degree that the calcium is elevated over the potassium, the higher that ratio. So let me see what his was. His calcium to potassium ratio is 1325. And it should only be a 3.12. So that's how slow is thyroid. That's how much of the brakes the thyroid is put on. Yeah. So that's his main thing that we're looking at here in the wellness check. That is the one. Like when we looked at that, we also look at the digestive system. So we look at the chromium and zinc, and those have to do with insulin recognition, insulin metabolism. So that's going to be like metabolic syndrome or any kind of insulin or problems with carbohydrates. There's that ratio. And the other ratio we look at is the calcium to magnesium. We want those. Those are a lot of minerals like to be twins. And calcium and magnesium like to be together. Calcium and phosphorus like to be together. So in his situation where the calcium is higher than the magnesium, that's another indicator that he wouldn't handle carbohydrates well, and he has a problem with carbs and sugars. Now, people will say, well, I don't feed him to him. I'm saying, well, that's really good then, because if you did, he would be in a worse condition because he can't handle those. That calcium and magnesium have to be even in order for the body to be handling sugars and carbs and insulin and all that really, really well. So because calcium and magnesium also regulate the release of insulin and the holdback on the insulin. So we look at that part of digestion. We also look at protein based on the phosphorus level and the calcium to phosphorus ratio. It's on that graph. And that would show up in this wellness check, but he doesn't have any problems with that. That was really, really good. His calcium phosphorus ratio is like almost perfect. He's just barely in the parasympathetic, which is, again, slowing the body down. But he's really close there to being at the optimal, just barely on the slow mark when we look at that. So phosphorus and the calcium to phosphorus ratio is our assessment of protein. And that means, is he getting enough variety of protein? So does he have all the amino acids he needs? Is he getting enough volume of protein? Is the body breaking it down in the stomach? Like, are the enzymes and the pH right? And then can he absorb it? And then also, like some people, they get on a certain type of meat and that's all that individual gets. Well, that's not all of the amino acids. And so that will cause the phosphorus to be low. His phosphorus was perfect. So was his chromium. So I can say from what you've been doing with him, like he is like really, really good there. And so what happens too then, like if that's not balanced, then you're going to see changes in the body function. So if the protein is low, then so is poor muscle, so is skin weak. And so you could end up, because of that, and if the calcium and magnesium were super low, which it is in most dogs, not in him, then we end up with joint problems and ligament tears and weakness in mobility function and breakdown that way. Just poor stability of being able to move the bones. And that is like another part of what we see on these tests. And it's very, very detailed. And then again, we look at the endocrine system. So the thyroid, the adrenals, the pituitary, where the phosphorus is also, in addition to tell us about protein, is an indicator of the pituitary. You know, you've got that hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So we can see on this test what part of the pituitary is not right if it's off, and what the adrenal function is at the cellular level, not just a test in the blood, but what is the body getting via the interstitial fluid and what is it doing with it?
Great.
So that's a big part of that we did on that part of it. And then we have the toxic metals.
Yep.
Okay, so we've gone through the wellness check, and actually on him, really, I mean, like he is so close to perfect. His immune system, which is looking at the zinc and copper, perfect. That ratio is perfect on him. I talked about his protein is perfect. His digestion is like so good. Just this little bit with the thyroid thing. So we also have the toxic metals. He's got a 5 on the caution. And
what 5 out of what?
So a 5 out of,
Is that like
I think it's a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
I haven't had to think about this for a little while. So, but when you go to his toxic metals, if you click on that, he's got several that are showing, but none of them are high. If you see that, they're all very just like minimal.
Yeah, like I see just for people that can't see what I see, I pulled that up and I see a low on lead, mercury, aluminum, cadmium, arsenic, all low. Mm-hmm. It sounds like he lives in the world.
Yeah, and none of them are high enough that they're any concern whatsoever. They're ticking, but none of them are.
Yeah, everybody, he's lived on the planet 8 years almost in 2 more months. 3 more months. So he's almost 8 years old. So he's had a little bit of time to collect, toxic, God knows what, here and there, just like walking on the streets or whatever. But that's good news. Mm-hmm. I want to go back to thyroid super quick. So it was maybe about a year ago. I think I had a full blood panel done on him, but also I did I think it's called the GOLD test with Dr. Gene Dodds. So real quick again, like, and my vet was like, everything looks great on his thyroid. I had a dog before when I didn't live in Colorado that he had a little bit of iffy stuff with his thyroid. And we took care of it naturally without a thyroid replacement. Mm-hmm. And it was just fine. And he lived to 16 years old, Labrador. But tell me again, just summarize like how I want to be thinking about, like, say, a Gene Dodds test, which is what I understand is like, a really high standard test. The gold standard, the gold test literally, I guess, is the better one. And then your reading on the hair analysis, because you went through that, but give me a quick summary for people who didn't quite get that, because I didn't.
So in his situation, the thyroid is purposely working slow. It doesn't mean that you could have all the hormone levels could be fine.
Which you would test you just, I'm sorry to interject, but you would see those in the blood test, the levels, but in the hair test, you're seeing a slow, fast?
I'm seeing a slow, the adrenals are fast and the thyroid's slow. Okay. And it's slow purposefully to help the adrenals not overwork more and the body burn out. Okay. But when we address what needs to be handled on the graph, then the adrenals will be saved and the thyroid can take the brakes off and now start getting, it can go back to the speed that would be optimal. Okay. Yeah. So it's not low. It's not like saying there's a low thyroid. It's saying it's slow. Yeah. Purposefully. Yeah. And that's what
apples, oranges.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different way of thinking about it and looking at it. And you can't apply how you read a blood test to how you read the hair, the interstitial fluid. Sure. Right. Yep. But it is that this metabolism that has to do with that thyroid adrenal comparison. So because the thyroid is slow and the adrenals it's fast, that makes him a mixed oxidizer. Yeah. So it's like he's got one foot on the gas pedal and the other foot on the brake. And sometimes you're like, go and stop, and get a little bit of whiplashy. This is an intermediate phase. What we really want him to be is just barely inside the fast metabolism rate, a fast oxidizer, just barely inside of that. But depending on what their metabolism is, that's like how quickly when you eat, do you change that food to energy? That's the metabolism or the oxidation or the oxidizer. All those words can be the same. So how quickly do you change your food to energy? Because that's what food's about, is the energy to propel the body to do what you want it to do. So he's a mix, and because the thyroid's slow and the adrenals are fast. So there are certain ways then that body digests and assimilates those nutrients better. And this is why, again, when you're looking at feeding and looking at the foods and what's in the diet, number one is you need to change it seasonally, because that's how the body changes between winter and spring and summer and fall. You need to change the diet because the body is changing and it's not going to digest the same. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you're allergic to something or sensitive to something, but there may be digestive alterations that happen with certain foods at certain times of the year because the body's going, don't give me that. I can't, now's not the time, Kato. Like you wouldn't eat as many, like summer is fine for fresh greens, but you wouldn't do so much of that in the wintertime because the body is like the deciduous plants. Things have gone down to the roots. And so now's when you eat rooted vegetables and you would eat more of that kind of thing in the wintertime. The same with the metabolism rates, like a really fast metabolizer, these dogs need to eat raw. They need the raw food. But if you take a slow or a mixed, depending on how slow that thyroid is, so a slow oxidizer, which means the adrenals and the thyroid both are slow, or a mixed, those ones are not going to do really good on a raw diet because it takes more of their energy than to warm that up and digest that. So that's where you get into the lightly cooked foods or the freeze-dried are better for those mixed or those slows. But our goal is to move them into just barely inside the fast oxidation rate. That's the best place for the dog's body to be.
Okay.
Not too fast.
Yeah, he's right in the middle. So you show it's almost like a pedometer, not a pedometer. What's that? Odometer. Car. Yeah. And he's right at 12 o'clock. He's in the middle. So slow and fast are on basically the left and the right sides.
So a lot of times with those kind, then what I say is to feed. So you're going to feed them for both the fast and the slow. And you would feed the fast in the morning, what would be in that. So in your report, it's going to be information about how to feed the fast oxidizer and also information on how to feed a slow oxidizer. And the mixed is you're going to feed a little bit of both. And so in the morning, when they're going to be more active and more stimulated, you would feed for the fast. And then in the evening, you would feed for the slow.
So he gets fed in the morning.
You're feeding for that body when the best way that it's going to be able to digest and assimilate those ingredients.
So, folks, my takeaway from this, and again, I'm learning this right now.
Live.
Is like I feed him in the morning. And so I think to myself, this is the way I think. I think, okay, if this is even 50% correct, and I always say if, I'm not saying it's not correct, but this is how my brain thinks. I like to be truthful and like consider all options. So I think to myself, if this is even 50%, maybe it makes sense for me to feed him at night instead of in the morning. And why is that so difficult? So that's where my brain immediately goes. And then on the metals thing, I'm not seemingly too concerned. By the way, tell me if you think I'm not thinking about this right, but I'm not too terribly concerned about that because it's so low. But I may in a year get a heavy metal test on him, maybe, but I'm not sure I will chelate him. I'll talk to my vet about that, who's an incredible vet. And then I might look at his thyroid another time and take another picture of it. And I'm definitely showing this graph to my vet. So it's just like the way I think about this is I'm not worried. I'm not concerned, but I say, this is amazing. This is great information. How am I going to take action on this information? You know, one of the nicest, easiest things I see from this is, maybe it's not ideal for him to be eating in the morning. And you know what? I have never, ever once thought about that. I have never once ever until this conversation, which I thank you for opening up my mind to this. I've always fed my dogs in the morning. Why? Because it's convenient to me. And that isn't how we should be feeding our dogs. I hear this from Dr. Billinghurst and all the vets that I talk to that are geniuses. We must feed our dogs according to what is best for them. And there's a lot of nuance in that. And that means feeding once a day, twice a day, cooked food, raw food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, everybody, he gets a raw food diet, organs. He gets the Billinghurst raw food diet for sure. All my dogs for 25 years have been fed that way. And another takeaway that I'm getting is it's interesting, this protein by season, the time of year.
Yeah, all the foods, not just the proteins. It's everything that's made up in the food.
Yeah, I heard you loud and clear about the tubers and the root vegetables and all that, versus the green stuff. So that's really interesting. So, the bulk of, so what I do is I give him raw meat, raw organs, crushed up bone or whole bones, whatever. And then I give him a vegetable blend. That's the bulk of his veggies. He gets Gussys gut, which is, for his weight, is basically 2 teaspoons. It's not that much. And then sometimes he gets oils. He gets an egg sometimes, and
so just yogurt. on that bit, I wouldn't go like putting some oil in the food as to make sure that that's balanced, and that is okay. When the thyroid is slow, you don't want to push a lot of like fish oils and extra oils because it makes the thyroid even slower because that oils are thick and sludgy. And so that's not going to make it easier on the thyroid. It's only going to slow it down more. So in his situation, I would not. And also his sodium is not that high. And that's another, when the sodium is high, we want the oils. But in his situation, I wouldn't go adding in more oils. I mean, what you're doing is probably fine, but I definitely wouldn't now decide, I need to do more.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially in the winter time when the body is already more sluggish and gone down. Like you could get by with it more in the summer because it's an energy source. Dogs burn that fats really quickly when they can. So it's another time, like he's not going to burn that oil as quickly because the thyroid's not doing that kind of thing. So you don't want to give it to him and say, okay, I know you want to go slow, but I'm going to give you this and make you have to do more work. That's not, and you wouldn't know that if you didn't do this test. So the other thing too about the toxic metals is that you never, and this is why, again, this test is good. You never want to detox if you haven't prior to that filled in the gaps of what's missing in that body and corrected the nutrient balancing. And you will not know what is needed and wanted if you don't do this test. And so a lot of times, I mean, like the worst thing you can do is take a older dog and then realize that there's some toxic metals. Maybe you did a blood test or some other test and you go, oh, he's got these toxicities. And now all of a sudden you do this detox on this body that's already struggling. And you think, oh, he's struggling because of the metals. Well, he has the metals because he doesn't have the right levels of minerals and vitamins and aminos and enzymes potentially to help that body function in that interstitial fluid. So now you've just created this terrible tornado, hurricane, tsunami in this body that was trying to do as good as it could, and you just pushed him the other direction. And now he's sick for a whole kinds of other reasons. And now you find that there's some kind of disease that now is going to need some kind of drug, when really at the very beginning was doing the hair analysis, finding out exactly what's needed for that body. And then a lot of times the body can trickle those toxic metals away. They're only there because the body can't do something about it. If you give them the right nutrients, it takes a lot of vitamins to create hormones and to detox the body. And if they don't have those available in the right balance with the minerals and all of that, then that's when problems arise. So I wouldn't even, like, his toxic metals are so low. All you would do would be do the nutrient balancing. And I can say from his test, what he needs is some magnesium, because his calcium's too high compared to the magnesium. So he needs some magnesium added in, either like a magnesium lactate or magnesium citrate. So he needs a magnesium, and he also needs some more zinc added in because his sodium is high, and that's how we bring that down. And so that's also going to help. His potassium was low, and the zinc is going to help bring the potassium and bring the sodium down, and that is balancing the adrenals. So he needs some chelated zinc, he needs some magnesium, and then to help support his thyroid with its slow state and help nourish it, I would do the standard process canine thyroid support or the whole body support. It also, and both of those will look at not just the thyroid, but the adrenals and the hypothalamus and the pituitary. It'll support that whole endocrine system. So that's the three things that he needs based on the assessment and the report.
That's really
and then you would just follow this up. You would do those three things with what you're already doing that's like totally good. Do those, and then in 4 to 6 months, have another TMA done, and then see how it's changed.
Right.
And sometimes the toxic metals may rise, which just means that now he has the nutrients and he's starting to push some of them out of wherever they've been stored. And so it may go up, but then that's okay because it's happening slowly and gradually, and he's picked which one he can handle. Which one can I get rid of right now? And so it's getting rid of it. And then you continue with the program, and the next time, then they'll start dropping again once the body's pulled them out.
Is it even, how common is it for a dog, say over 6-7 years old, at the halfway point in most dogs' life, hopefully not the halfway point in my dog's life yet.
Yeah, well, your last one lived to be, what you said, 17 or something?
I think this guy has a chance to 18, but we'll see.
Yeah.
He's a smaller conformation, smaller guy. Uh-huh. But, and he's also intact, so he has his hormones.
Oh, good. Oh, that helps a lot too. It's another good point for the protein. Yeah.
Do you think, is it even possible in our day and age, like our world, that you could have like a no heavy metal presence at all? Yeah. So that's kind of where I was going with this, which was like, it just seems to me like that's just part of life and living these days. But, you know, my attitude is always like, keep the system just super gently detoxing every day. And I don't mean like some crazy chelation detox. I'm talking about good quality foods. Mm-hmm. You know, fermented foods help too, but good quality, clean proteins. Mm-hmm. You know, what these animals eat matters a lot, and it goes right into your animal from the meat. You know, and then, you know, you've got people eating or giving like liver treats, Dr. Ava, that are from these, like, I'm sorry, they're just very toxic cows. They're eating they're in industrial farms eating this horrible diet that's probably full of metals itself. And then the liver is the detox tool. And so one of them, yeah, sorry. And that's then getting turned into a treat. And that's maybe what these dogs are eating. So it's really important to go to feed organic when you can and regenerative, but please just start it organic, because especially if you're giving liver treats and organ treats, it's not, I guess what we're saying here is it's not really totally possible. It's a great idea, but even if you're in like beautiful Colorado, fresh, all the imagery that you have living in Colorado, it's like everywhere.
Still breathe. There's aluminum in the chemtrails. You're still breathing. It floats down. It's everywhere. If everybody could have them as low as Gus has the toxic metals, it'd be a good world.
Yeah.
Because it's like nothing to be considered.
I haven't talked a lot about this. What happens when dogs have high levels of metal poisoning by the age of, say, 7? All, heavy metals.
Well, it depends on which one they have. Like aluminum is really bad for allergies. So you could have a dog that's got a lot of allergy problems, and you've got them on the pills, you've had them on Pred, you've had them on all kinds of things that you're looking at, like treating this allergy. But the bottom line could be the aluminum's really high. And so you address that and get rid of the aluminum, and the allergies start to go away. That would be one example. Mercury is one that is attracted to the nervous system. So, you could have a dog at 6 or 7 starts having tremors or seizures or any kind of even aggression. Mercury is what was in the glue back in the days with the felt hats. And they had what they called Mad Hatters, because everybody that made those felt hats eventually became very angry and aggressive and mean people. But that's because they absorbed that mercury. They weren't wearing gloves and they didn't realize it. And mercury was even used as a medicinal to a degree back then too. So there was a lot of mercury exposure. Well, mercury can cause aggression. So you could be treating this dog and going to behaviorist for aggressive tendencies, and certainly over-vaccinating with rabies can add to that too. So there's a lot of factors. But if you didn't know that his mercury was a 1.5, which is high enough to really be causing some of those problems, you're chasing something and you're not going after, again, the real why. My whole thing is, if you get to the basic, the real reason that a lot of things started, you don't have those things anymore to deal with because you're correcting the source. And that's why I do this test, is because it gets you down to the very nitty gritty of where did it start. And I'm saying we do this with puppies, kittens, young horses. I mean, because the baby, we like to think that their baby is just born and it's all this perfect thing. No, it's whatever the mother was or wasn't. Yeah. So I just did a 7-month-old dog that has aluminum super high. That's not that dog's lifetime. That came from the mother. Sure. And so now you start with this puppy, and then people have these young ones that have these allergies and these disease problems, and they're just thinking that, the dog's a lemon, and they're always at the vets and starting out young. Well, there's a reason that could be found in doing a hair test that goes back to the mother. The mother passed it on, and also it'll pass in that colostrum and the milk. So not only do they get it in utero for their timeline that they're there, but also then when they're nursing too. Yeah. And so to do this test, it's a 90-day window. We get this test, the blood is that minute of that second of that day. The hair test is like a 90-day average, which is an average of the 90 before that, and the 90, it's like who begat. So it's a summary, but it really gives you a better, broader picture of where this body has been. And also we can look at that like a crystal globe and predict where will this body be if we don't change things.
Yeah, that's very interesting. The two supplements that I'm more, I'm 52, so I'll be 53 soon. I take a little bit more supplements than I did early on. Mm-hmm. I take really high quality supplements. I'm very careful about the ones I take. I don't capriciously take supplements, but two of them I take the ones you recommended, chelated zinc. I take that, and I take actually 3 magnesiums. And I have a question to you about magnesium. They're all very different. They work at different levels in the body. Do you think magnesium threonate is good for dogs?
Actually, that's not one that I've had that's a common one that I've tested with them. Okay. So I can't answer on that one. I would have to get some of it and then start testing it compared to the other and see. Yeah.
Yeah. That one I like a lot because it's enough experts have said that it's like one of the higher value magnesiums, and it works on the brain, especially calming you down, helps with sleeping.
Well, magnesium calms the nerve and calcium calms the muscles. So that's magnesium's job, is to calm the nerves, which again, when we're looking at some of those that have seizures or have tremors and that, generally their magnesium is super low and their calcium is super low. So it's going to happen. I mean, the heart needs that for all that it does. So what you can do if that's the one so usually I use either chelated magnesium or magnesium lactate. But if you want to use that one, then what does he weigh?
He's 40.
Okay. 49. So it's small. Yeah, 50-ish pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, his magnesium compared to his calcium, you need a pretty good boost. I probably would do 1 twice a day for starters with him. And then the zinc, he probably needs, say 30 milligrams, 30, maybe. 40. Twice a day on the zinc.
Yeah. Oh, twice a day. Okay.
Yep.
All right. What do you think about, I just took him to the chiropractor. He's a crazy athlete. I just said to a friend today, I said, Gus's big danger to Gus is Gus.
Yeah.
He does everything fast. I mean, he's just a ballistic. He's always been this way. He's just like pow, pow, like, and he jumps and every time since he was young, he lands on his back legs and then his neck moves. I'm like, God, he loves jumping and fetching, but I try to minimize that with the way I throw the ball. But anyway, I took him to the chiropractor today, and he's like, yeah, neck, shoulder, back, his back hind end, maybe bring him back next week. And so I gave him some CBD too. What do you think about CBD as a supportive to chiropractic and body work?
Well, my first certainly would be the minerals and making sure calcium, magnesium, all that's on board. My other favorites is actually MSM and Boswellia. Those are my 2 favorites.
I take Boswellia.
That's really, really good. It's a COX-1 and COX-2 anti-inflammatory and doesn't hurt the gut or the liver or the kidney. Boswellia is awesome. And those that you don't know, Boswellia and frankincense are the same plant. It's a tree.
Boswellia is
So it comes in a tablet, in capsules, and powder, and also in essential oils. And again, you want to have a good quality of that. I use Banyan Botanicals a lot, which is out of Albuquerque. It's organic Ayurveda herbs, and that's where Boswellia is. So they have an organic Boswellia that's really good as a powder. So that and MSM, those are my two go-tos first.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I would love to look into fermenting that.
Yeah.
I think Boswellia is just, it's really, it could, for the right person and the right animal, it could be a miracle.
Oh yeah.
Total miracle.
Yeah.
Thank you for that referral. I'm going to look them up.
Yep.
Okay. So let's switch. Thank you for all that assessment. So everybody, if you are curious about what Gus has been through, what we discussed, just go to checkpup.com. And, all you have to do is snip a little hair, put it in, and then they analyze it. And I think like the more information you have that you can take into the total picture, the better. And like, I'll take this graph to my vet and I'll have a different conversation with my vet because of this. But I really feel like we need to get people connected to a great holistic vet to be on their team. So many people that we have as customers, they feel, they're 15 miles outside of town, or some are 45 minutes away from the nearest holistic vet. We have a huge vet shortage, period, but a real big vet shortage that's functional, holistic, natural, whatever you want to label your vet as. And so I know that you do telehealth phone consults, and we're going to get you up on our page about that, because
Thanks.
We're woefully underserved in terms of and I mean all of us pet, folks, dogs and cats, we need to have resources that make it easy for people to pick up the phone or a Zoom and discuss the issue. Because a lot of times you don't, I don't need my vet. If I call my vet, I can ask questions or get prompted the right questions and answers. I don't need my vet on my hands on my dog every single time. It's not required. I can have the blood test done and then a checkup, and I think the value of vets that is underappreciated is coaching you on how to think around your pet's health concerns and wellness. Is that fair? Do you think
I think it's being observing, paying attention to what's normal, not normal for your animal, and knowing how they act, but then also having the veterinarian that when you tell them these things are going on, that they believe you. Because if you take them to the clinic, they can act totally different. It's not like it is at home. And so you need to be able to be, the pet owner needs to be comfortable enough to be able to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what's going on. And they should not be chastised by the veterinarian and then oh, that's nothing. Well, if the dog doesn't ever do this and now it's doing it 30% of the time, that is something. Just because it maybe doesn't fit in that veterinarian's niche of some graph of something that they're going to, the flow chart. So definitely there's research that is needed to find that right blend between the pet parent that is moving into that functional mindset and the holistic care, but yet still, because there's myself, there are a lot of veterinarians that are holistic, and I do chiropractic, but I don't anymore. And I do the rehab, which I've done that for a very, very long time and published in that area as well. But I don't do drawing blood, and I don't do IV catheters and things like that. So you still have to have a traditional vet that you're comfortable with and one that works well with me. And I do have many that way. They'll go, okay, this is what we're doing, but you need to check with Dr. Ava and make sure that what she wants to do or what she would think of this. And that's the best blend.
You're bringing up really good points about having a telehealth appointment with a great vet, because you've got four things going. I made notes of, which is you've got a long form appointment. You've got whether it's a 30 or 60-minute telehealth dedicated, focused on your dog. That's number one. Magic is built into the time. When you go to a traditional vet, if you're lucky, you get 6 minutes with that veterinarian, which just
exactly.
The other thing is those vets are used to I don't even know how to phrase this, the type of customer that goes to those kinds of conventional vets. They're a certain type of customer, and they're maybe not quite as observant, whereas the people who go to holistic vets are a little bit more considerate and observant. They just are. I mean, it's not an attack on anyone. It's just that's just the way things are. The people who go to a conventional vet, by and large, they go, here's my dog, fix this, inject it with something, give it something. I want to be done with this thing. Whereas the holistic people who go to holistic vets are tell me what's at the root, what is happening so that I can address it. And then we'll come up with a plan to address it. Is that fair? Does that sound right?
Yeah. They've learned to not function on this urgent. It has to be now. Make a decision, do something today, or you're bad. You've lost out. We won't see you for another however many weeks. That they have learned to not feel like they have to fit into that mold and operate that way. They're granting themselves the time needed to pull all the data and to make the most correct, right decision for their loved fur baby.
Yeah. The other thing, so it's long form interview. They believe you when in that environment that is, whether a Zoom or phone call, they're more inclined to believe you when you say, my dog is doing X, and then start talking about what that behavior means, because they may not be doing it in the vet's office at that particular moment.
Exactly.
And then they think differently. So holistic vets just think differently. That's huge. And then the last thing is they can think around problem, whereas most conventional vets come at one angle.
Yeah.
They're not thinking, around something, 180 degrees around something.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that one, because that is totally me. I mean, I like the weird. I like the ones that nobody can figure anything out. They've done this, they've done that. It doesn't. I like the ones that, like, my mind gets to, like, go into all those little crevices and and I ask these questions about this and that, and pulling it together and then doing this other kind of testing that's like. And then when it all comes together, what they're seeing at home, what they've reported to me, whatever the diet, when you put it all together, and then in a short period of time, this animal is making humongous changes that the other vets were like, they're never going to get well. You need to euthanize them. This is all you got. You have to stay on this drug for their whole life. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know he could be this way, or he hasn't been this way in 7 years. And it's just so fun. It is so fun.
Yeah, I have told this story plenty of times. To my first black lab buddy, when he was a puppy, he had this insane, incessant itching. And I mean, your heart bled. I mean, it was horrifying. So I took him to 4 vets from 4 big, well-known corporate clinics, because back then I didn't know what I didn't know. And the 4th vet infamously said, he might just have to be on steroids the rest of his life. I mean, that's literally what he said to me.
Yeah.
And also, at that time, I didn't know. I knew steroids didn't make sense because I didn't have experience with them, but it just didn't make any sense to me. And I essentially left and never came back. I fired him. But that led me to the whole holistic world. And then I rang up Marty Goldstein. And that was my whole journey.
Yeah.
But that is, now I know how crazy serious, how damaging that long-term steroids are. A miracle. If you need them, they're an absolute godsend miracle.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But you abuse those, like many things, you are screwed in a lot of ways. It destroys the immune system. It just, joints, all the stuff, depending on how you use them.
Protein assimilation. You become catabolic instead of anabolic.
Oh man, horrifying. So, it gets really scary really quick. So just basically the thought of that was, to me was unthinkable. But now knowing what I know about steroids, I'd be like, well, my dog would have been dead by the age of 3 or 4 or 5 or who knows what.
Oh yeah. If you started as a youngster, for sure.
Yeah. And that was he was 11 weeks old, for crying out loud.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So 11 weeks, that's not a lifetime thing. They just weren't finding the source of the problem.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess where I'm hoping people understand is through our conversation that having an expert on your team, get a healthcare team. Dr. Ava Frick does telehealth, consults. There are other people. Find the vet that resonates with you and work with them and make them your partner. Keep up with them. You can, a lot of them tell you what tests to do. You could do the tests locally. Sometimes you can do them by mail. Folks, I can't stress it enough. It's the best investment you'll ever make. And you won't make the wrong investment by getting the wrong diagnosis. Fair?
Yeah, because they're going to have enough time to pull things together in another perspective, and you'll get to the best of what the options are.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Frick, this has been great. Thank you for giving Gus his test results and me that advice. I've written a ton of notes. I'm going to take action on those things. And I don't know, can you send my vet or send me that graph? Because I want to get my vet to look at that if I can.
I can't myself, but I can get,
people?
The company can. Yeah.
Okay. I figured so. Well, great.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we haven't talked about so many other things. I mean, I could talk to you about chiropractic for an hour. I just think it's a miracle.
Yeah, there's so many fun, cool things out there to talk about. One of my other favorite topics too is harness fitting. About all the ins and outs. I have a little video thing I've done and a PowerPoint program about the do's and don'ts of harness fitting as it relates to posture, mobility, the spine, joints, memory, function, all of that.
Because if you were to wear something yourself and it adjusted your gait even just 1%, and every time you go out and walk, and I'm talking about your dog now, they're 1% off in their gait. Well, guess what that does?
Yeah, over time. Yeah, it's going to lead to a disease problem. But you can see harnesses, like the packaging of them is like the companies themselves don't even know how to fit a harness right and how to have it on a body to where that body can still function uninhibited with it.
And that's on your website?
I have to be careful when I go to a park or when I'm out walking, because not everybody wants to know that there's a better way to walk the dog. There's better fitting. Sometimes you just have to let it go. But it's out there.
I cannot even imagine.
Yeah. Alrighty, cool. Well, this has been fun.
Thank you. It has been fun. Is that paper on the harnesses? Is that on your website?
I have it through Pet Summits. It's on the Pet Summit site with their programs. I need to I've presented it at the chiropractic conference with the AVCA. I've done that as a presentation there before too. But not thinking it's on my website just like as a link, but I need to do that to where it can be. Oopsie.
Yeah. I'm sure there's plenty of things you need to be doing on your website. You probably got a ton of information, right?
Yeah.
I put this back on the screen. Ava Frick, Frick. If you're listening to this and not watching it, Dr. Ava Frick, thanks for joining us. Ava Frick.
My pleasure.
And we'll do it again. We'll come back and have another chat.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Give Gus a hug and a kiss on the noggin for me.
Oh, I will. And he smells good right now because I just rinsed him. He's very soft and very clean right now because he was in the dirt today. And now
that was fun.
Yeah. Anyway, he was in the microbiome today. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thank you for joining us, as always. And please like and subscribe to our channel here at Gussys Gut on YouTube. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.